Good evening and thank you for joining us. An airplane that took off from Thunder Bay crashed upon landing in Wawa this morning.
Fortunately, no one was injured, but officials from the Transportation Safety Board say there was extensive damage to the plane. The aircraft was a Mitsubishi MU-2 owned by Thunder Airlines in Thunder Bay. There were 3 people on board at the time, 2 pilots and a medic. The webcam set up next to the Wawa airport shows emergency vehicles rushing to the scene just before 8 o'clock this morning. The TSB say the runway was snow-covered at the time, and the plane lost control while it was landing. Thunder Airlines Emergency Response Manager Michelle Moffat says the company's grateful no one was hurt. TSB investigators will be at the scene tomorrow to try to determine the cause of the crash.
The Thunder Bay District Social Services Board is reassuring the public that the local emergency shelter system is prepared to support the unhoused this winter.
It comes amid fears about capacity, with many still living in encampments. DSAB and officials say that they have tactics and funding to ensure everyone can stay safe this winter. Vasilios Bellos reports.
As temperatures continue to drop, many of Thunder Bay's homeless population have already or will soon be utilizing the emergency shelter system to stay warm. As of last week, 121 of the 128 beds were being used, though the Thunder Bay DSAB is prepared to expand capacity when needed.
Increasing the number of transitional housing units with support services is the way to deal with it.
CAO Bill Bradicus says these beds won't solve the issue of homelessness, but stresses there's still clearly a need, with the DSAB ready to make more available to keep people safe.
For this year, we're also looking to add additional overflow shelter capacity should it be needed. So we're in discussion with a couple of the shelters on how we might be able to do that should it be needed.
The overflow beds would increase the capacity to 158, though that doesn't include the DSAB's efforts to make arrangements for individuals to stay in hotels when there is overflow. In terms of outreach and support groups, the DSAB is providing almost $3 million towards these organizations in the 2023-24 budget, a $600,000 increase over last year.
There's 2 warming centers, one on the south and one on the north end, the care bus. I think it's critical that we were able to continue to support that outreach and increase the funding in that area.
The DSAB continues its efforts on the front line by attempting to connect the homeless population to housing during the winter. Manager Michelle Wojciechowski says there are challenges, with many needing support throughout that transition.
Too much for them to handle. Their mental health isn't where it's at, that they feel that they have the capacity to maintain a home and live on their own. So there's definitely a barrier in our community for that, the mental health and the transitional housing. So people need support. They don't need to just be put into a home.
Last week, outreach group Elevate NWO estimated more than 50 people were living outdoors, though the DSAB support team counted 18 unique individuals who are, quote, sleeping rough in Thunder Bay. The DSAB recognizes the disparity in these numbers, but remains confident in the accuracy of their reporting. Vasilios Bellos, TBT News.
The proposed indoor turf facility has once again found its way onto the City Council agenda. It comes after Council pushed back a decision on the financing plan, asking administration to cap the construction costs at $30 million. Tonight's deputation request comes from the Soccer Northwest president, Michael Veneziali. His organization was the one that proposed the now preferred site next to the community auditorium. Veneziali is asking administration to ensure that the size of the field isn't changed when they look for cost savings. Soccer Northwest stands by its proposal that the facility can be built for less than $30 million.
Fort William First Nation is still waiting for federal funding for a proposed 96-bed long-term care facility. Former Chief Peter Collins lobbied for the project for many years, and new Chief Michelle Solomon says it's now one of her long-term goals as well. The proposed facility is shovel-ready, but received no response from Ottawa in June of 2022 when an application was filed for $25 million under Infrastructure Canada's Green and Inclusive Community Buildings Fund. The projected $40 million project already has approval from Ontario's Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care, which would support the operating costs. Solomon is hopeful the federal funding will eventually come, given that the project would be very beneficial to the community.
We know that that project would serve, a lot of people, not just the people of Fort William First Nation. And we know that there's a high need for long-term care beds. And particularly having a facility that is Indigenous owned and operated and, will have the Indigenous nature embedded in it.
Anishinaabe police say one of the two suspects involved in a break-and-enter and theft at a gas bar on Fort William First Nation has been arrested. The incident happened early Friday morning at Mountain View Variety on City Road. Two men gained entry to the store and made off with nearly $10,000 worth of cigarettes. They were captured on surveillance video, and these images were released on Saturday. 46-year-old James McLaurin was seen on the left, was arrested and charged with break and enter while committing theft, along with breaking a probation order. He remains in custody pending the bail hearing. Anishinaabe police are thanking the public for all of the tips that led to this arrest. Anyone with information on the other suspect is asked to contact APS or Crime Stoppers.
MPP Lise Vaugeois is questioning the Ford government over its plan to merge Northwestern Ontario's two health units. Vaugeois raised the issue at Queen's Park today. The parliamentary assistant to the Minister of Health responded and spoke about expanding medical school spaces ad nauseam, but not about the health unit mergers.
40-plus ministerial visits to the north, and this government still has no idea of our lived realities, or they don't care. The government is now studying whether district health units in Northern Ontario should be merged. Can you imagine one health unit to cover 400,000 square kilometres? Why is this government trying to reduce healthcare services for the people of Northern Ontario?
Years of neglect by previous governments, supported by the New Democrats, got us into the situation that we're in today. But we're taking action to fix the mistakes of past governments. I can't believe the member opposite is complaining about the number of ministers going to the north from this government. That should be a good thing. We are paying attention to what's happening in the north.
Organizations from across the city have teamed up to help tackle a variety of emergencies that impact food security.
This was highlighted today at the Roots Community Food Centre, where officials released their emergency food response plan. Mitchell Ringos has the details.
Organizations from around the city cheered for a brighter future with the new Community Emergency Food Response Plan released after over 3 years of planning. The idea came forward after the pandemic left Thunder Bay food security specialists scrambling to ensure students attending schools that were closed didn't go hungry. As the pandemic grew, they realized the issue went beyond the classroom and that the city was without an emergency food strategy, which needed to change.
Once the pandemic began, we saw that there wasn't a coordinated plan in place either here or across the country or across the world to get food to people in need. So this is really trying to fill some of those food access gaps, and it's really just a first step.
The plan itself is a 38-page document put together by Thunder Bay and Area Food Strategy with input from various organizations around the city, including the Regional Food Distribution Agency, the Dewdrop Inn, the city's Community Safety and Wellbeing Council, and Roots Community Food Centre, which Executive Director Aaron Beagle says was essential as this wouldn't be possible alone.
There's so many doors that a community member walks through. They're not always going to walk through Roots, and they're always going to walk through the Indigenous Friendship Centre. So no matter what door they walk through, they need to know that they could get their needs met. And so we need to be able to make sure that we're collaborating without, our own stuff and behind that to make sure they get it.
Partners plan to meet regularly to run through a variety of scenarios. On Monday, they played out an extreme heat wave. And while another pandemic isn't likely right now, wildfires and floods that displace entire communities or something like a highway closure does happen and can impact food security. Emergency Food Plan Coordinator Courtney Strutt says this also isn't just for Thunder Bay, as she hopes other communities can use this as a guideline.
And I think and hope that we can also contribute to other communities being able to do this work themselves. Inspire that. We are so happy to share any and all of our resources, the tools that we've adapted and created in the process of this.
And those looking for more information can find the full plan on the Thunder Bay and Area Food Strategy website. Mitchell Ringos, TBT News.
Poets, storytellers, and songwriters gathered at the Delta Hotel this weekend to raise awareness about violence against women.
The Ontario Native Women's Association hosted its 8th annual Strong Hands Stop Violence Poetry Night. The event blends the power of words, art, music, and community to provide a safe space for those on their own healing journey. Jessica Clement has the story.
It was a night of hope and healing for those attending the Ontario Native Women's Association's 8th annual Strong Hands Stop Violence Poetry Night. The event was part of the International Day to End Violence Against Women, with the purpose to provide healing and allow women to reclaim their voice and power through art.
Healing is holding hands with the wind.
The event featured a mix of established and emerging artists and showed attendees how poetry, art, and music could express the inexpressible. Inuk singer-songwriter Susan Aglukark was one of the keynote speakers for the event. She spoke about using expression as a healing tool and performed a number of songs throughout the evening. Aglukark says events like Poetry Night are critical.
When we think about the sheer numbers of women who face violence every day, who are leaving violent situations and need to relearn and rediscover safety in their body, in their soul, in their spirit. Spaces like this and events like this and organizations like ONWA are very critical to just meeting them where they are at.
ONWA CEO Cora Maguire-Surrett has been part of Poetry Night since day one. She says it's grown a lot since they started, and it's her favorite event that they host.
Being able to, be vulnerable in this space with your community and be able to actually talk a bit about your journey, about your healing, and reclaiming your voice and reclaiming your empowerment. And so, the power of this evening is something I look forward to every year.
ONWA Community Development Manager Colin Graham adds that the event is near and dear to his heart, as it's allowed community members to heal and grow together.
We know that we're doing impactful work by empowering the voices of survivors of domestic violence, of all sorts of violence. It's a night where we are more than survivors. We recognize the power of that. We are all healers.
More information about the Strong Hands Stop Violence project can be found on ONWA's website. Jessica Clement, TBT News.
On Christmas morning, most kids are all smiles as they eagerly rip open their presents.
That wasn't the case for one local boy whose cranky reaction after waking up too early was captured on video last year by his mom. The video is so hilarious that it was chosen to air on America's Funniest Home Videos this past weekend. Josh Morano has the story.
When Colson Antonishen's mom Ellen woke him up on Christmas morning last year and asked her almost 3-year-old son if Santa came, his response gave the family some laughs.
I don't care. I don't care, Mom.
Why?
I don't care.
His mom recorded the video because she says it was Colson's first real Christmas he could experience due to his age. It's also very well known Colson is not a morning person. She submitted the clip to America's Funniest Home Videos around January and was told a couple weeks ago Colson made the show.
We woke up Christmas morning and my husband went in the room to go and get him, and I just kind of started recording, and I had told him Santa came, and he walked around the corner and he just kept saying, "I don't care, Mom, I don't care." So then he kind of changed his tune once he saw that there were presents on Christmas morning, and he got more excited.
Since then, Colson has a newfound love for Christmas, maybe because of the presents. He even went to see Santa with the rest of his family and helped decorate the tree. Or it could be because of those Christmas treats. This year, Colson's not asking for much from Santa, and it seems like he has big plans coming.
What do you want for Christmas?
Because we know him at the station, so I can put
A
in a good word.
bulldozer.
Okay.
And a boom set.
Yeah.
And an excavator.
And an excavator. So you're trying to do some heavy work. Is there something in particular you're working on? Colson's video first aired on America's Funniest Home Videos on Saturday and will live on in reruns for years to come. Josh Morano, TBT News.
I'm right there with you, Colson. Sometimes I don't want to get up in the morning either, and need to be coaxed to start my day.
Yeah, he's got busy plans for sure.
Oh, he absolutely does now. Well, turning to weather now, Fiona, it's official. We've got some winter-like temperatures here now.
Yeah, this was a kind of a cruel start to the work week. I mean, the weekend was a little bit cooler and definitely a little bit windy at times, but today was just nasty. We had an overnight low of -14, but winds were probably whistling outside your window. They certainly were outside mine. Very gusty, causing wind chills to sit at -24. Then today, with the winds continuing to blow from the northwest up to 48 kilometers per hour, we topped out with -10 and wind chills of -18. That was under mostly cloudy skies for much of the day. So it was definitely a shock to the system, and we weren't alone. Very cold temperatures and very blustery winds for most of the region. Now, Fort Frances actually has been holding pretty steady at around -14 since midnight last night, with gusty winds. The wind chill is currently sitting at -22, similar temperatures up into Kenora and Dryden. Red Lake was even colder last night. They warmed up a whole 3 degrees today to -15, but wind chills there are also sitting around -21, and that was under some fairly clear skies for most of the day. As we head into Sioux Lookout, we're at -14, -13 in Armstrong, -14 in Greenstone, and this region also saw temperatures hold very steady since about 7 a.m. this morning. But in Greenstone, the snow hasn't stopped, and the gusty northwest winds have really affected the region. Wind chills are currently hovering around -23. Along the North Shore, we're at -12. And down into Sault Ste. Marie, well, if we thought it was windy here, it was even more gusty on the shores of Lake Superior. In Sault Ste. Marie, winds have been gusting up to 60 kilometers per hour, and that's causing a lot of the snow to turn into blowing snow and really affecting visibility there. Wind chills are currently sitting at -15. Here in the city of Thunder Bay tonight, it's going to be another cold one. Temperatures dropping down to -15 and wind chills of -24. That's under clear skies. Winds will start to taper off, and tomorrow is looking a little bit warmer, but because it is so cold today, even warmer is still below normal for this time of year. Northwestern Ontario is going to have to work pretty hard to get back into seasonal temperatures, and I'll have more details on how long that will take later on in the news hour.
Okay, thanks a lot, Fiona. Well, there's some good news coming out of Gaza today. That 4-day ceasefire that was set to expire in just a matter of hours has been extended by another 2 days. We'll have the latest when your Monday News Hour continues right after the break.
We want to go back to our homes, this woman says. We don't want war at all.